Welcome back to Secrets Exposed. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. You're the reason these stories worth sharing. Tell us where you're watching from, city or country. We're amazed by how far these tales reach. To get daily new and amazing stories for you, subscribe our channel and press bell icon. All right, let's begin. The shrill vibration of a phone split the silence of the small apartment. Daniel stirred awake, his hand fumbling across the wooden nightstand until his fingers closed around the glowing device. His eyes squinted at the brightness, the numbers piercing through the haze of half-sleep. 3:09 a.m. A single notification stared back at him. New message, Emily. He swiped it open, his breath catching before he even finished reading. Dad. He's dragging Mom toward the pool. She can't breathe. The words blurred for a second, his mind refusing to process. Then the weight of them slammed into his chest. Daniel shot upright, adrenaline pumping hot through his veins. He read it again, each word burning itself deeper, dragging, can't breathe. He stood frozen, the stillness of the room mocking the chaos unraveling inside him. The faint hum of the refrigerator in the next room, the distant sound of a car passing outside. Everything felt unnaturally loud in the wake of his daughter's desperate cry for help. His thumb hovered over the screen, wanting to type back, but his mind screamed at him. No time. Move. He grabbed his jeans from the chair, pulling them on with trembling hands. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. Daniel's apartment was modest, a stark contrast to the lavish world his ex-wife now lived in. He knew every creak of the floorboards, every peeling patch of paint on the walls. But tonight, none of it mattered. What mattered was that his daughter, his Emily, had sent him that message instead of anyone else. She trusted him. She needed him. As he shoved his feet into his sneakers, 1,000 questions collided in his head. Why didn't she call the police? Why at the pool? Why now? He could picture Claire's face in his mind. Pale, exhausted, the way it looked the last time he'd seen her. He remembered how she'd brushed off his concerns with a brittle smile. Ethan's fine, Daniel. Just drop it. But Emily had always been sharper. She saw things, felt things before others did. And now, she was begging him for help. Daniel grabbed his keys and phone, bolting out the door. The hallway lights buzzed faintly as he raced down the stairs, every step echoing like a drumbeat. His car waited in the lot below, cold and still under the sodium lamps. He yanked the door open, slid behind the wheel, and jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. With shaking fingers, Daniel opened the hidden app on his phone, a private system he had installed years ago, back when the penthouse had still been his. He had left quietly when the marriage ended, but he never surrendered control of the silent guardians embedded in its walls. Cameras, sensors, feeds no one else knew about. The app loaded, and his stomach clenched. The pool deck came alive on his screen, bright floodlights reflecting off the water, music thumping faintly in the background. And then he saw them. Claire, wet hair plastered against her cheeks, her body bent under the force of Ethan's grip. She struggled, arms flailing, her mouth opening in a voiceless plea. Ethan's face twisted with a grin that was half charm, half madness. His phone in his other hand glowed with the unmistakable shimmer of a live stream. And just behind a lounge chair, Emily, his little girl, knees pulled tight against her chest, her small hands gripping her phone, her eyes wide and glistening with terror. Daniel's blood boiled. His knuckles turned white around the steering wheel. He was already parked behind the gate, watching it all unfold in real time. For one searing moment, he couldn't breathe. The man who thought he had everything, the wife, the fame, the power, was about to learn he wasn't as untouchable as he believed. Daniel's foot pressed against the accelerator, the car lurching forward. The night air outside seemed to hold its breath, as if the city itself knew that what was about to happen would change everything. And Daniel? He was ready to walk straight into the fire. The penthouse glowed like a lighthouse against the midnight skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows spilled golden light into the darkness, and the distant thump of bass vibrated through the glass. To outsiders, it looked like a celebration, laughter, clinking glasses, the shimmer of wealth at play. But on the pool deck, the truth was uglier. Ethan Cole stood at the center of it all, shirt unbuttoned halfway, champagne bubbling over his fingers. His phone was tilted just so, catching the perfect angle of his sculpted jawline. The screen glowed with a cascade of hearts and comments. "Looking good, King. Where's Claire? Show us the Queen. Best party of the year." Ethan flashed a grin, dazzling practiced. "You know me, fam," he said into the lens, his voice smooth as honey. "No one does it like I do. Tonight's just getting started." But behind him, reality cracked through the image. Claire stumbled near the edge of the pool, one hand clutching her ribs. Her silk dress clung to her damp skin, transparent in the harsh lights. Her face, pale and streaked with tears, looked nothing like the glamorous wife fans imagined. She gasped for air, her voice hoarse. "Ethan, stop. Please stop. Not here, not in front of Emily." The mention of her daughter's name was almost swallowed by the music, but Ethan heard. His grin didn't falter. He angled the phone higher, out of frame from where Claire knelt. To his audience, the party looked alive, electric. To Claire, it was a prison. "Relax, baby," Ethan murmured through clenched teeth, his hand tightening on her wrist. "They eat this up. They love seeing me raw, unfiltered. That's the brand. That's why I can do whatever I want." His grip yanked her closer, and her knees scraped against the wet tile. The sting made her flinch, but she bit back a cry. She'd learned long ago not to give him the satisfaction of a scream when others could hear. From the shadows, Emily watched, curled behind a lounge chair, her small fingers dug crescents into her phone case. Her heartbeat thundered so loud she thought Ethan would hear it. She had texted her father, begging for him to come. But now every second dragged like an eternity. Her wide eyes darted between her mother and stepfather. She'd seen Ethan like this before, the cold flicker in his eyes, the way he shifted from charming to cruel in an instant. But tonight was different. Tonight, he wasn't hiding it. He was performing it. Emily's throat burned with words she wanted to scream. "Stop. Leave her alone. I hate you." But fear welded her lips shut. If he saw her, if she made a sound, he'd turn that same cruelty on her. Claire's voice broke again. "Ethan, please. She's watching." Ethan leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. To the live stream, it looked like a tender whisper. In truth, it was poison. "Good," he hissed. "Let her watch. Let her learn." Claire's stomach twisted while rising. Her body ached. Her lungs screamed for air. But the worst pain was knowing her daughter sat frozen, powerless to intervene. Above them, fireworks cracked faintly in the distance, some celebration far across the city. For a moment, the light flickered across Ethan's face, exposing the truth beneath the smile. Hunger, control, a deep satisfaction in bending others to his will. Emily pressed her phone tighter, whispering to herself, "Come on, Dad. Please hurry." Ethan straightened, raising his glass toward the camera again, as if nothing was wrong. "You see this life?" he told his viewers, champagne spilling over his knuckles. "No one can stop it. No one can touch me here." The crowd of comments exploded with adoration. Hearts floated up the screen. They couldn't see Claire's trembling frame or Emily's tears. They only saw the mask, and Ethan knew it. That was the game. The image was everything. But beneath the hum of music, beneath the flashing lights and empty applause, there was a current Ethan hadn't accounted for. Because while he reveled in his performance, somewhere beyond the gate, an engine rumbled closer. Daniel was already there, and the moment Ethan realized it, the performance would shift from a party to a nightmare. The iron gate loomed ahead, its sleek metal bars glinting beneath the pale glow of the security lights. Daniel's car slowed, then stopped just short of the entrance. His fingers hovered above the dashboard controls, his breath coming fast and shallow. On the tablet mounted to his dash, the live feed from the pool deck continued without mercy. Claire was still on her knees, coughing against Ethan's grip. Emily remained tucked in the shadows, eyes wide, her phone clutched like a lifeline. Ethan's grin never wavered as he raised his glass to his audience, oblivious, or perhaps indifferent, to the devastation he was causing. Daniel's jaw tightened. Every instinct screamed at him to floor the gas, crash through the gate, and tear that smug smile off Ethan's face. But years of control, years of suppressing his anger for the sake of Emily, forced him to hold back. This couldn't be reckless. One wrong move, and Ethan could take his rage out on Claire, or worse, on Emily. His hand reached into the glove compartment, pulling out a small black fob. A relic of the life he once lived in that penthouse. A master override. He pressed the button, and the gate clicked open with a mechanical groan, the sound echoing across the quiet street. Daniel's car rolled forward. The tires crunched against the gravel driveway as he parked beneath the shadow of the towering building. He killed the headlights, swallowed hard, and stepped out. The cool night air hit him, sharp and metallic, thick with chlorine drifting from the pool above. Each step toward the entrance felt heavier. Memories flooded back. Birthdays celebrated on that very terrace. Claire's laughter echoing through the halls. Emily splashing in the pool with floaties on her arms. Now those same walls held only corruption and cruelty. Inside the lobby, the security desk sat empty, a bottle of half-finished champagne resting where a guard should have been. Ethan's charm had bought loyalty here too. Daniel's lips pressed into a hard line. Of course. He took the stairs 2 at a time, his phone buzzing in his pocket. Another message from Emily. His hand shook as he unlocked it. Dad, hurry. He's pushing her. I don't know what to do. Daniel's throat closed. He forced his legs to move faster, every muscle coiled like a spring. His mind replayed the images from the camera feed. Claire's drenched hair, Ethan's smug smirk, Emily's trembling hands. He couldn't let this play out 1 second longer. As he neared the rooftop access, the sound of muffled music grew louder, vibrating through the concrete walls. He slowed, pressing his back against the doorframe, his breath shallow. He peered through the crack in the doorway. The scene before him was both surreal and gut-wrenching. Ethan stood with his phone angled high, his voice booming as he addressed his unseen audience. Behind him, Claire teetered dangerously close to the pool's edge, her legs shaking. Her eyes darted toward the doorway, toward Daniel, as if she could sense him there. Emily, still hidden, caught sight of her father. Relief and terror collided in her expression. She shook her head frantically, mouthing words he couldn't hear but understood perfectly. Be careful. Daniel's chest ached. Every fiber of him wanted to charge forward, but he stayed rooted for one more heartbeat, calculating. He had to time this right. If Ethan turned, if he realized Daniel was there too soon, Claire might end up in the water, or worse. Then, just as Daniel shifted his weight, Ethan's expression changed. The grin faltered for a fraction of a second. His eyes flicked, not toward Claire or Emily, but directly toward the camera mounted above the pool. And for the first time, Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. Ethan raised his glass in a mock toast. His lips curled into a smirk, and he said softly, almost like a secret, "He's here, right on time." Daniel's blood ran cold. Ethan knew this wasn't chaos. It was a stage, and Daniel had just stepped into the center of it. The rooftop door creaked as Daniel pushed it open, stepping onto the pool deck. The music from Ethan's playlist still pulsed in the background, but the atmosphere had shifted, sharper now, the laughter gone. The scent of chlorine hung heavy in the air, mixing with the faint tang of alcohol. Ethan turned slowly, lowering his champagne glass, but keeping his phone angled toward himself. The glow from the screen painted his face in flickering light, making his grin look almost sinister. Well, Ethan drawled, voice dripping with mockery. Look who showed up, right on cue. Daniel froze a few feet from the water's edge. His eyes darted past Ethan, locking onto Claire. She was shaking, her dress clinging wet against her frame. Her lips parted, a broken whisper escaping. Daniel. Emily's small figure stirred in the shadows. Her wide eyes met her father's, pleading silently. Daniel gave the faintest nod, a promise that he was here now, that she wasn't alone. Let her go, Daniel said, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. Ethan chuckled, lifting his glass in a toast. What? And ruin the show? You've already got front row seats, my friend. He tilted the phone, pretending to address his audience. Everyone say hi to the ex-husband. He thinks he's the hero tonight. The screen lit up with a flood of hearts and laughing emojis. Ethan's fans couldn't see Claire's bruises or Emily's fear. To them, it was entertainment. To Daniel, it was hell. "Put the phone down, Ethan," Daniel snapped. Ethan's grin widened. "Why would I? This," he waved the device, "is power. Proof. Evidence that I own this night. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? Please. I've got a million fans who'd kill to be in my shoes." Claire coughed, her knees buckling. Ethan's grip tightened on her wrist, pulling her back upright. "Don't," Daniel warned, his voice cracking under the weight of his rage. "You're hurting her." Ethan leaned down, lips brushing Claire's ear. To the camera, it looked like a kiss. To her, it was venom. "You hear that? He cares. Cute, isn't it?" Claire's eyes welled, but she forced herself to look at Daniel. Don't come closer," she whispered, terror flickering in her gaze. She wasn't protecting Ethan. She was protecting Daniel. Daniel took a step forward anyway. His fist clenched so tight his knuckles whitened. He wanted to end this, to rip Ethan's smug mask off in one swift move. But one wrong step could send Claire into the pool. The water glistened behind her, black and endless, a trap waiting for her body. Emily's voice, small and trembling, finally cut through the tension. "Stop it, please." The sound startled Ethan. His head snapped toward her hiding spot. His grin faltered for the first time, eyes narrowing. "There's my little audience member. Brave enough to talk now, huh?" Emily shrank back, her hands trembling as she clutched her phone. "Don't hurt her," she whispered. Ethan laughed, a harsh, hollow sound. "Oh, sweetheart, you've got it all wrong. I don't hurt. I teach. I show the world who's really in charge." His eyes flicked back to Daniel, daring him to move. Daniel's chest heaved. He had to stay calm, had to think. Ethan was feeding off the performance, drawing energy from the camera. Daniel's every word, every step, was part of Ethan's script. But something in Ethan's eyes unsettled him. The way he glanced at the pool camera, at the angles of the security system. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. Daniel realized, with a sick twist in his gut, that Ethan wasn't just live streaming to fans. He was orchestrating something bigger, and Daniel had just walked straight into the act. The pool shimmered under the harsh terrace lights, its surface rippling from the faint wind. Claire's reflection wavered in the water, broken, distorted, as though the pool itself were waiting to swallow her. Ethan kept her tethered near the edge, his hand clamped around her wrist like a steel cuff. Daniel stood a few feet away, chest heaving, every muscle tensed. The hum of the city below seemed far away, muffled by the pounding of his pulse. He had walked into plenty of tense situations before, but nothing prepared him for this. His daughter crying in the shadows, his ex-wife struggling for breath, and Ethan smiling like a man hosting his own twisted stage play. Ethan swirled the champagne in his glass lazily, eyes glinting. "You know what I love about nights like this?" he asked, as if addressing both Daniel and the unseen audience watching his live stream. "The unpredictability, the thrill. No one knows how the story ends." He lifted his phone, turning the lens just enough so Daniel was half captured in the frame. "Look at him," Ethan crooned, his grin wide. The ex-husband, the knight in shining armor. He thinks this is about saving the girl. He tugged Claire closer, making her stumble. "But this isn't about her, or even about you, princess." His eyes flicked toward Emily's hiding place. "It's about me." Emily whimpered, barely audible, but Daniel heard it like a gunshot. He snapped, his voice booming across the terrace. "Ethan, enough." For the first time, Ethan's expression cracked. His eyes narrowed, his grin stiffening. He tilted his head, studying Daniel as if he were a piece of art. Then, with chilling calm, he pressed Claire closer to the pool's edge. Her heels slipped on the slick tile, and she gasped, clawing at his arm. "Careful now," Ethan mocked. One wrong step, and he mimed a splash with his free hand, chuckling. Wouldn't that make a headline? Daniel's fists clenched so tightly his nails dug into his palms. "You don't want to do this." "Oh, but I do." Ethan's voice dropped, his words sharp as broken glass. "Do you think this is the first time? Do you think she hasn't been here before, begging, pleading, acting like she didn't deserve it? And you, Daniel," he sneered, "you abandoned her. You left her to me. Claire's voice cracked, weak but desperate. Stop, Ethan, please, not in front of Emily. Her words cut through Daniel like a blade. He had left, but not by choice. He had walked away because fighting Ethan's influence in court was impossible, because Claire had convinced herself she could handle him. Now he realized how wrong she had been. Ethan leaned into the camera again, his eyes glittering. The fans love this, he said. They love authenticity. And what's more authentic than a man showing the world that he can't be touched? Claire's body wobbled dangerously as his grip forced her off balance again. Emily, unable to stay silent, cried out, "Dad." Ethan's head whipped toward her, his grin stretching unnaturally wide. There she is, he taunted, the loyal little witness. Tell me, sweetheart, did Daddy tell you about the cameras? About how he still spies on this house like a pathetic ghost? Daniel froze, the words slicing into him. Ethan knew about the feeds. He knew. This wasn't some drunken cruelty. This was deliberate. Ethan raised his glass high, letting the champagne spill onto the tile. Here's the truth, he announced, voice ringing with false triumph. I control the story. Not her, not you, and certainly not the little rat hiding behind the chair. His phone tilted again, framing Emily now in the corner of the shot. She flinched, shrinking back further. Daniel stepped forward, his voice low, dangerous. You're done, Ethan. Let her go. But Ethan only smirked, his thumb hovering over his phone screen as though about to flip the camera fully around. No, Daniel. You're done. The world's watching, and they're about to see you lose everything again. Claire's knees buckled, her heel sliding over the tile. A single splash echoed as her shoe hit the water. She teetered, one breath away from falling in. Daniel's heart lurched into his throat, and Ethan, smiling like a man holding all the cards, whispered into Claire's ear loud enough for Daniel to hear. Let's see if your hero saves you this time. The pool deck had fallen into an unnatural silence. Even the bass of the music seemed to fade, swallowed by the tension hanging thick in the humid night air. Claire teetered dangerously close to the water's edge, Ethan's grip cutting in her wrist, her dress dripping onto the tiles. Emily's wide eyes glistened in the shadows, and Daniel's body trembled with the force of restraint. Let her go, Daniel demanded again, his voice raw. His chest rose and fell like he was holding back a storm. Ethan tilted his head, studying him. Then, slowly, he lowered his glass, set it on the ledge, and leaned closer to Claire's ear. His voice was soft, mocking. Do you hear him? Your knight. Always late, always begging. Claire whimpered, her knees bending under the strain. She didn't dare look at Daniel now. Not because she didn't want him, but because she was terrified her gaze would provoke Ethan further. Daniel took a step forward, his fists clenched. That was when Ethan did something that froze the blood in his veins. He raised his phone higher, pointing the camera not at himself this time, but at the small black dome mounted above the pool, the security camera. Smile, Daniel. Ethan sneered, turning the lens back toward him. You're already live. Daniel's stomach dropped. His eyes darted toward the camera, realization flooding him. Ethan knew. He had known all along. You thought you were clever, didn't you? Ethan continued, his voice rising, his grin stretching unnaturally wide. Sitting in your little cave, watching us like some pathetic guardian angel. But I've seen you. I've known you were there. Every click, every login. Claire's head snapped toward Ethan, her lips parting in shock. Emily stiffened in her hiding place, her phone trembling in her hands. Daniel's voice cracked. What did you do? Ethan laughed, the sound jagged and cold. What did I do? Nothing you wouldn't have. I learned. I adapted. I took your precious security feeds and turned them into my playground. This, he waved his phone, this isn't just a live stream. It's a mirror. Every angle you thought was yours belongs to me now. Daniel's chest tightened. For months, he had trusted those cameras as his silent lifeline to Emily and Claire. He thought they gave him control, proof, safety. But Ethan had flipped the board. Ethan leaned into the phone, speaking directly to his audience now. You see this man? The jealous ex, sneaking around, spying on his family. Pathetic, right? And now he storms in here like some hero. But heroes don't win. Not in my story. The comments on Ethan's screen exploded with laughing emojis, fire icons, words of adoration. None of them could see the bruises on Claire's arm or the tears streaking Emily's face. To them, it was a show. Claire's voice, hoarse but firm, cut through the air. Daniel, he wants this. He wants you to lose control. Daniel froze. She was right. Every second of hesitation, every flicker of rage in his eyes, Ethan was feeding on it. He was crafting a narrative for his fans, turning Daniel into the villain and himself into the untouchable star. Ethan yanked Claire closer, her body jerking violently. Tell him, sweetheart, he whispered, his words sharp as needles. Tell him how you begged me not to marry you. Tell him how you stayed because you were scared of being alone. Tell him how useless he made you feel. Claire's lips trembled, her voice breaking. Stop. Daniel's vision blurred with fury. His muscles coiled, ready to strike, but his mind screamed restraint. One wrong move, and Ethan could drag Claire into the water, or worse. Emily's sob cut through the air. Dad, please, she whispered. Ethan's gaze darted to her, and for a moment, the mask slipped. His eyes darkened, raw with something far uglier than arrogance. He raised his phone again, the lens capturing Emily's terrified face. There she is, Ethan hissed. The little snitch. Do you know what she did, Daniel? She texted you. She betrayed me. And for that, he jerked Claire forward, her body stumbling closer to the water. You all pay. Daniel stepped forward, voice like steel. If you hurt her, if you hurt either of them. Ethan smirked, cutting him off. You'll what? Hit me? Kill me? Go ahead. Give them the ending they're waiting for. He gestured toward the phone. The world's watching. Do something. The water behind Claire rippled in the wind, dark and endless. She was a single push away from being submerged. Emily's tiny figure shook in the corner, torn between fear and desperation. And Daniel realized the horrifying truth. This wasn't about Claire anymore. It wasn't even about him. Ethan's true target was Emily. The wind shifted across the rooftop, rustling through the palm planters and stirring the surface of the pool into restless ripples. The water reflected the terrace lights in broken shards, as if it sensed what was about to happen. Claire's knees buckled again. Ethan's grip was relentless, dragging her closer to the edge, her bare toes skimming against the slick tiles. Each stumble drew a fresh gasp from her throat. She wasn't just fighting him. She was fighting exhaustion, fear, and the sickening weight of knowing Emily was watching. Stop this. Daniel's voice cracked, louder than he intended. He took another step forward, but Ethan yanked Claire sharply, forcing Daniel to freeze. Ethan's smile faltered for the first time, his breath heavier now, his composure thinning. The champagne glass he had abandoned lay on its side, spilling across the tiles like a forgotten prop. His eyes darted between Daniel and Emily, feeding off their fear, but his charm was slipping. You don't get it, do you? Ethan snapped, voice jagged. This isn't about hurting her. This is about showing you who's in control. Showing her, his eyes flicked to Emily, that no matter what you do, I win. Emily flinched, pressing herself against the lounge chair. Her phone trembled in her hands. She wanted to disappear, to vanish into the shadows. But every word Ethan spat seemed aimed at her. Claire's voice broke, desperate. Ethan, please, not in front of her. Ethan barked out a bitter laugh, dragging Claire another inch closer to the pool. The reflection of her body wavered in the water like a ghost. In front of her? For her. She's the audience that matters. Not the fans, not him. He jerked his head toward Daniel. But her. She's the one who needs to learn what happens when people betray me. Daniel's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed to launch himself forward, but he could see it in Ethan's twitching grip. One sudden move, and Claire would be under. The pool seemed to gape wider, hungrier, waiting. You're unraveling, Daniel said, his tone low, steady. He tried to pierce through Ethan's mania. You're not in control anymore. Look at you. The mask is slipping. You want to prove something, but all I see is fear. Ethan's jaw tightened. His smirk faltered into a sneer. Fear? Do I look afraid? He shoved Claire forward, her heel splashing into the water. She gasped, arms flailing, barely clinging to balance. Emily let out a choked cry. Stop. Please, just stop. Her voice shattered something in Ethan. His head snapped toward her, and for a moment, the mask was gone. His eyes, raw and burning, locked on her trembling frame. The performance wasn't for the fans anymore. It was for her. You, Ethan hissed, releasing Claire just enough to point at Emily with a trembling finger. You ruined this. You brought him here. You made me look weak. Emily froze, every muscle stiff with terror. The shadows that had hidden her now felt like a spotlight. Her breath came in ragged bursts, and she shrank back, but Ethan's gaze pinned her like prey. Daniel stepped forward instinctively. Leave her out of this. Ethan's laugh cracked, hollow. Leave her out? She's the reason this is happening. She's the reason you're here. And now, he yanked Claire upright again, dragging her body between himself and Daniel like a shield. Now she gets to watch what happens when you cross me. Claire's nails clawed at his arm, her voice breaking. Ethan, stop. She's just a child. But Ethan wasn't listening anymore. His grin had vanished, replaced by a manic focus. His live stream still glowed in his hand, comments racing past in a blur, but he no longer glanced at them. The audience he wanted wasn't on his screen. It was Emily. Daniel's gut twisted. He realized with sickening clarity that Ethan wasn't trying to prove himself to the world. He was trying to carve himself into Emily's memory. He wanted her fear. He wanted her silence. Daniel's voice lowered to a growl. If you touch her, I swear. Ethan's eyes snapped back to him, wild and unblinking. You swear what, Daniel? That you'll finally be the man you never were? That you'll save them? Heroes don't exist. Only survivors. And I decide who survives tonight. The pool light flickered beneath them, casting eerie ripples across their faces. Claire's breath came in shallow gasps, her body trembling in Ethan's grip. Emily's tears glistened as she clutched her phone, paralyzed by fear but pulled closer to the edge of the nightmare. And Daniel stood one heartbeat away from unleashing everything he had held back, knowing one wrong move could destroy them all. The terrace felt suffocating, the humid night air pressing down like a weight. The only sound was Claire's ragged breathing and the restless churn of the pool, its surface shimmering as if hungry for what might fall into it. Ethan's phone still glowed in his hand, but his attention had shifted. His eyes, dark and unblinking, locked on Emily. The grin he wore earlier was gone. What remained was something colder, stripped of charm, a raw obsession. You thought you could betray me? Ethan's voice cut across the rooftop, sharp and jagged. You, of all people? Emily shrank further against the lounge chair, clutching her phone so tightly her knuckles blanched. Her lips trembled, words caught in her throat. For weeks, she had endured in silence, too afraid to speak. Tonight, her one act of defiance, texting her father, had dragged them all into the fire. Ethan, stop. Claire gasped, her knees giving way as he dragged her closer to the pool's edge. Her reflection shimmered in the water, broken, wavering. She's just a child. Ethan yanked her upright, his grip iron. A child who made me look weak. Who turned you against me? Who brought him here? He jerked his chin toward Daniel, who stood rigid, fists clenched, every muscle coiled like a spring. Daniel's voice was low, steady, but laced with venom. You don't scare her. You disgust her. Ethan's head snapped toward him, his lips twisting into a sneer. Oh, really? Watch this. He shoved Claire forward until her toes slipped off the slick tile, teetering over the water. Her arms flailed, catching on his shoulder to steady herself. A sharp cry tore from her throat. Emily screamed, her small voice breaking the night. Stop it, please. That sound cracked something inside Ethan. His eyes widened, and a laugh escaped him. Not the polished charm his fans adored, but a hollow, jagged sound that made Daniel's stomach clench. There it is, Ethan whispered, staring at Emily as if she were the only one left in the world. The sound I wanted. Fear. I could live off that forever. Claire's sobs filled the silence. Ethan, please. If you ever loved me. Love. He barked out a laugh, tightening his grip on her arm. Love is weakness. Control is love. And right now, I control everything. He turned his phone toward Emily, the lens capturing her trembling face. Look at her, Daniel. That's the future. That's the lesson. She'll never define me again. Daniel's rage boiled over. He stepped forward, his voice thunderous. You touch her, and I'll end this right here. Ethan's grip twitched, his knuckles whitening around Claire's wrist. He smirked, tilting his head. Then do it. Be the hero. Prove me right in front of the whole world. The camera caught everything. Daniel's fury, Claire's desperation, Emily's terror. Ethan thrived on it, feeding the fire. But for the first time, his hands shook. Sweat glistened at his temples, his perfect composure unraveling thread by thread. Emily's chest heaved, her small frame trembling. She wanted to run, to hide, to vanish, but something in her father's eyes stopped her. The way Daniel looked at her now wasn't fear. It was trust. Silent, desperate trust. Her breath hitched. She realized the truth in that instant. Ethan didn't just want to break her mother. He wanted to break her, to carve fear so deep into her that she'd never speak out again. And for the first time, Emily's fear sparked into something sharper. Her hands tightened around her phone. Her knees pressed into the tiles as she shifted, readying herself. She was still shaking, still terrified, but she knew this couldn't go on. If she stayed frozen, her mother would fall. Her father would lose. Ethan would win. Ethan's voice rose again, venomous and triumphant. This is the moment, Daniel. Your daughter's first real lesson in life. Nobody saves you. Not even Daddy. The pool lights flickered, casting ghostly ripples across the terrace. Claire's heel slipped again, her body lurching forward. Emily drew in a shaky breath, her fingers gripping her phone like a weapon. She whispered so softly only she could hear, not tonight. And for the first time, she began to move. The terrace lights flickered against the restless pool, every ripple painting the scene with fractured reflections. Claire's foot slipped again, her heel plunging into the cold water. She let out a strangled cry, clawing at Ethan's arm to steady herself. Stop this, Ethan! Daniel shouted, his voice cracking. He edged closer, fury etched across his face. Let her go before it's too late. Ethan sneered, holding Claire tighter, his knuckles white against her skin. You don't get it, do you? This is the show. This is what they'll remember. He tilted his phone toward Daniel, capturing him in frame, his anger, his helplessness. You're just a supporting act. From behind the lounge chair, Emily's breaths came fast and shallow. Every nerve screamed for her to stay hidden, but her father's eyes, steady, unwavering, begging her silently to hold on, rooted her in place. And then Claire's scream tore through the night, breaking her last shred of fear. Emily's small frame emerged from the shadows. She rose slowly, her knees trembling, her phone clutched like a shield. Leave her alone, her voice rang out, thin but sharp against the night. Ethan's head snapped toward her. For the first time, his eyes widened, the grin faltering. He hadn't expected her to move. He hadn't expected her to speak. There she is, he hissed, dragging Claire closer to the water. The little traitor. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Emily, no. Stay back. But Emily didn't retreat. Her chest heaved, her hands trembling, but her feet carried her forward. You can't keep hurting her, she said, her voice breaking. You can't keep hurting us. Ethan's laugh cracked, hollow and bitter. Us? You think you're part of this fight? You're nothing but a prop in your father's fantasy of being a hero. He turned the phone, framing Emily in its glowing lens. Say hello, sweetheart. Smile for the world. Emily's lip trembled. She glanced at the camera, thousands of invisible strangers watching. Then at her father, whose fists were clenched but whose eyes urged patience. And then at her mother, who teetered, broken, at the edge of the pool. No, Emily whispered, shaking her head. Not anymore. She moved suddenly, a burst of courage overriding her fear. She darted forward, her sneakers squeaking against the slick tile. Ethan jerked in surprise, pulling Claire sideways, but Emily's momentum carried her. She slammed into his arm, knocking his phone loose. The device spun through the air, glittering in the terrace lights, before plunging into the pool with a hiss and a burst of sparks. The live stream cut to black. Ethan's scream of rage echoed across the rooftop. His grip faltered on Claire just for a second. She gasped, stumbling free, collapsing to the tiles in a heap. "Emily!" Daniel roared, surging forward. Ethan's wild eyes locked on the girl. His mask of charm shattered completely. He lunged, but Daniel intercepted, slamming into him with a force that rattled the terrace furniture. The two men grappled, grunts and curses filling the air. Emily scrambled to her mother's side, wrapping her small arms around Claire's shoulders. Claire coughed violently, clutching her daughter close, whispering brokenly, "You saved me." Daniel's fist connected with Ethan's jaw, sending him sprawling onto the wet tiles. Ethan's head snapped back, blood streaking from his lip. He lay stunned for a second, then laughed, a broken, bitter sound. "You think this ends me?" he spat, dragging himself upright. "You think they won't believe me? I'm Ethan Cole. I am untouchable." But for the first time, there was no phone to protect him. No audience. No mask. Just his bleeding lip, his trembling hands, and 3 sets of eyes watching him unravel. Emily clung to her mother, her body shaking, but her gaze never left Ethan. For the first time, she wasn't just afraid. She was furious. And Ethan knew, in that moment, that he had lost something far more dangerous than a fight. He had lost control of the story. The rooftop was chaos now. The pool lights glowed in jagged ripples. The champagne glass lay shattered, and the phone, Ethan's shield, his stage, sizzled at the bottom of the water. The party soundtrack still thumped faintly from hidden speakers, but its once carefree rhythm now sounded like a cruel mockery of the scene. Daniel's chest heaved as he stood over Ethan, fists clenched, his knuckles throbbing from the blow he had just delivered. Claire lay crumpled on the tiles, Emily clutching her tightly, both trembling but safe for the moment. Ethan wiped the blood from his mouth, his lips twisting into a snarl. "You think you've won? You think one little brat ending my stream changes anything?" His voice cracked, jagged with rage. "I am a story. People worship me. You're nothing but extras in my film." Daniel stepped forward, his shadow cutting across Ethan's face. "It's over." But Ethan's eyes burned with something darker than arrogance now. Desperation. He scrambled to his feet, slipping slightly on the wet tiles, but steadied himself with a manic energy. His gaze flickered to the pool, then to Emily. Claire saw it first. Her breath hitched. "Daniel, he's looking at her." Emily's small frame tightened in her mother's arms, her wide eyes fixed on Ethan. Ethan's smirk returned, twisted and feral. "You know what happens next, don't you? I take away what you love most. Then you'll know what it feels like to lose. Just like me." And before Daniel could move, Ethan lunged. Not at Claire this time, but toward Emily. Claire screamed, wrapping her arms around her daughter, but Ethan's hand clamped down on Emily's wrist with terrifying speed. Emily shrieked, her phone slipping from her grasp and clattering across the tiles. Daniel's roar tore through the night. He launched himself forward, slamming into Ethan's side, but Ethan dragged Emily with him, his strength fueled by frenzy. They crashed against the pool's edge, the water sloshing violently, droplets splattering the tiles. Emily cried out, kicking against his grip. Daniel grabbed Ethan's shoulder, trying to tear him free, but Ethan's other hand clawed at the tiles, anchoring himself. "Let her go." Daniel's voice was guttural, primal. Ethan's laugh was ragged, his eyes wild. "She's mine now. My lesson. My legacy." Claire stumbled forward, her voice breaking. "Ethan, stop. Please. She's a child." "Exactly." Ethan snarled, his grip tightening. "She'll never forget this. She'll remember me every time she closes her eyes. That's immortality." Daniel's fist slammed into Ethan's jaw again, snapping his head sideways. For a heartbeat, his grip loosened. Emily wrenched her arm free, scrambling back into Claire's embrace. But Ethan wasn't finished. He staggered, blood running down his chin, and lunged again, this time at Daniel. The two men collided, their bodies crashing onto the slick tiles, dangerously close to the water. They grappled, grunting, fists flying. Ethan's nails raked Daniel's arm. Daniel's elbow drove into Ethan's ribs. The sound of flesh against flesh echoed against the terrace walls. Claire pulled Emily back, shielding her, tears streaming down her face. "Don't look, baby," she whispered, though her own eyes stayed locked on the fight. Ethan forced Daniel toward the pool, his strength manic, unyielding. "You can't beat me," he spat, his teeth bared. "I've already written the ending." Daniel's boots slipped on the wet tile. His back hit the pool's edge, the cold water lapping at his shirt. Ethan loomed over him, pressing down, his face twisted in fury. But Daniel's eyes flicked past him, to Emily. She was no longer cowering. She was on her knees, her small hands gripping the fallen phone she had dropped earlier. Her gaze was steady now, fierce, as if she understood something Ethan never had. This wasn't about strength. It was about courage. "Dad," she cried, her voice cutting through the chaos. Daniel's eyes locked with hers, and in that split second, he surged upward, fueled not by rage but by her unspoken trust. His fist shot forward, connecting with Ethan's temple. Ethan's body jerked violently, his eyes rolling for a moment before his weight shifted. His footing slipped on the slick tiles, and suddenly he was the one teetering on the edge. For the first time that night, fear flickered across his face. And then, with a splash that silenced everything, Ethan Cole toppled backward into the pool. The water swallowed him whole. The splash echoed like thunder across the rooftop. Waves erupted in the pool, splattering across the tiles and soaking Daniel's shirt as he staggered backward. For a moment, silence hung, the kind that grips the chest, the kind that makes time hold its breath. Ethan's body sank beneath the surface. The pool lights refracted, painting his form in ghostly streaks of green and blue. His limbs flailed, bubbles rising in frantic bursts. Daniel's chest heaved, his fists still clenched, his body trembling from the adrenaline coursing through him. Every muscle screamed to collapse, but his eyes stayed locked on the water. He didn't move. Not yet. Not until he was certain. Claire clutched Emily against her chest, both of them drenched in tears and fear. Emily's sobs shook her small frame, her voice muffled in her mother's shoulder. "Is it over? Is it really over?" Claire pressed her lips to Emily's hair, her voice breaking. "I don't know, baby. I don't know." The water rippled violently as Ethan's head broke the surface. He gasped, choking, his hair plastered his face. His eyes, bloodshot and wild, scanned the terrace. He clawed toward the edge, coughing water and rage. Daniel's body stiffened. He took a step closer, looming over the pool. "Stay down, Ethan. It's over." But Ethan only spat, his voice hoarse, broken but defiant. "Over? You think this ends me?" His hand slapped against the slick tile, searching for grip. "I'll come back. I'll take her again. You can't protect them forever." His gaze flicked to Emily, his voice rasping like a curse. "She'll always remember me." Emily whimpered, hiding her face in Claire's arms. Daniel crouched, his face inches from Ethan's. His voice was low, dangerous but steady. "You're finished. You don't own her. You don't own anyone." For a heartbeat, their eyes locked, Ethan's filled with hatred, Daniel's with resolve. Then, faint in the distance, a new sound cut through the night. Sirens, wailing, growing louder, climbing up the hill toward the penthouse. Claire's head snapped up, her tear-streaked face illuminated by flashing red and blue lights that danced across the terrace walls. Relief and fear collided in her eyes. Ethan's expression shifted. His defiance cracked, replaced by panic. He splashed harder, dragging himself up against the pool's edge. No, they can't see this. They can't." Daniel shoved him back with one swift kick to the shoulder. Ethan's body toppled into the water again, thrashing, sputtering. The sirens grew louder, closer, until the screech of brakes and the slam of doors echoed from the driveway below. Emily pulled free of Claire's grip and ran to Daniel, wrapping her arms around his waist. He clutched her tightly, pressing his chin to her hair, his throat tightening. For the first time that night, his tears fell. "You did it, Dad. Emily whispered, her voice trembling but strong. You saved us. Daniel shook his head, his voice breaking. No, you did. You saved her. He looked down at her, eyes burning with pride. You were braver than both of us. Claire stumbled toward them, dropping to her knees beside Daniel, wrapping both her arms around Emily. The three of them clung together, a tangled mess of tears, sweat, and relief. For a fleeting moment, the nightmare felt like it was fading. But the pool rippled again. Ethan surfaced once more, his breaths ragged, his body shaking with exhaustion. Yet his eyes, those wild, venomous eyes, still burned. He hissed through his teeth, his voice a guttural growl. This isn't the end. I'll never let you win. The terrace door burst open. Two uniformed officers rushed in, flashlights slicing through the humid air, their radios crackling. Behind them, building security followed, their faces pale with shock at the chaos before them. Step away from the pool, one officer barked, drawing his weapon. Daniel raised his hands slightly, motioning to Claire and Emily. We're not the threat. He is. The officer's lights landed on Ethan, still flailing in the pool. His once perfect hair clung to his face, his features twisted and broken. For the first time, he looked small, weak, and yet, even then, even drowning in his own downfall, his lips curled into a smirk. Because Ethan wasn't finished. Not yet. The flashing lights painted the rooftop in chaotic strokes of red and blue. Officers spread across the terrace, weapons trained on the man thrashing in the pool. Their shouts echoed through the night. Hand where we can see them. Out of the water now. Claire tightened her grip around Emily, pulling her back against her chest. Daniel rose slowly, shielding them both with his body as his eyes stayed locked on Ethan. Ethan dragged himself toward the edge, coughing, sputtering, his hands slapping against the tiles. He looked broken, hair plastered to his skull, blood smeared across his mouth, but his smirk lingered, stubborn, venomous. You think this ends here? He croaked, his voice hoarse, but laced with satisfaction. You think you've won just because you knocked a phone out of my hand? One of the officers leaned closer to the water's edge. Get out. Now. Ethan's gaze flicked toward him, then back to Daniel. His eyes glimmered with something colder than fear, a secret. He let out a laugh, jagged and broken, but steady enough to chill Daniel to the bone. Oh, Daniel, Ethan rasped. You never understood. I don't need this phone. I never did. Daniel's breath caught. His eyes darted to the pool where the device still lay, lifeless at the bottom. Slowly, the puzzle pieces shifted. Ethan's smirk, his confidence, his obsession with performance. And then the twist snapped into focus. Ethan's laugh grew harsher, echoing against the terrace walls. Every camera in this house, every lens you thought belonged to you, they've been mine for months. Tonight wasn't about a live stream. It was about a broadcast. His voice cracked into a manic grin. The whole system has been feeding outward, not just to my fans, to the press, to everyone. Your face, her tears, the fight. It's all out there already. Daniel's stomach dropped. His fists clenched, the realization slamming into him. Ethan hadn't just staged a performance for his followers. He had staged a spectacle for the world. Claire's face drained of color. No, that can't be true. But Ethan's words rang too true. The way he had taunted, the way he had looked directly at the cameras earlier, it had all been foreshadowing this moment. You'll never escape me, Ethan hissed, clawing against the tiles as the officers hauled him up. Even if they lock me away, I'll live in every headline, every replay, every memory. He jabbed a trembling finger toward Emily, his voice rising into a rasp. She'll never forget my face. Emily buried her head against her mother's chest, sobbing. Claire stroked her hair, her own tears falling freely. Daniel stepped forward, his voice sharp, unyielding. No, what she'll remember is that you fell, that you lost, that you begged for control, and it slipped through your hands. For the first time, Ethan's smirk faltered. His eyes narrowed, hatred swirling, but the officers yanked him upright, cuffing his wrists. He thrashed weakly, his words dissolving into bitter screams as they dragged him away. The terrace finally fell quiet, save for the hum of the city below. The pool stilled, its surface smoothing as if erasing the chaos it had just witnessed. Daniel turned back to Claire and Emily. Claire's eyes met his, heavy with exhaustion but soft with gratitude. Emily clung tighter to both of them, her small voice trembling. "Is it really over?" she asked. Daniel crouched, cupping her face gently, forcing her teary eyes to meet his. "It's over," he whispered, "because you were brave enough to end it." Emily blinked, her lip trembling. And then, for the first time that night, she nodded with certainty. Claire leaned into Daniel, the three of them forming a fragile circle of safety amid the ruin. The lights still flashed, but inside that embrace, something finally shifted. Hope. Far below, the city carried on, unaware of the storm that had just broken on the rooftop. But for Daniel, Claire, and Emily, everything had changed. Ethan had wanted immortality through fear. Instead, he had written his own downfall. Not as a hero, not as a star, but as a man who underestimated the quiet strength of a daughter's courage. And that was the memory that would endure.